Hello and welcome to the Easy Allies podcast. I will be your moderator, Brandon Jones. Joining me this week, panelists Ben Moore.
What up?
Ian Hink.
Hey.
My console LAN connecting co-moderator, Daniel Bloodworth.
Hello.
Distinguished guests, we are here for the next hour and a half or so to talk about some of the biggest headlines in the world of video games. But before we do that, we have to answer for all of the mistakes we made last week. Daniel Bloodworth, begin corrections music, please. Boop. Rob Ari-Ark got extremely technical in the comments. I'm going to have just 2 or 3 sentences from them. Thank you so much for the comment. The PS5 will be able to use off-the-shelf M.2 or M.2 NVMe drives. The M2 drives can vary in physical size. These sizes are noted as 2280, typical size, where 22 is the width and 80 is the height. In millimeters, the PS5 supports 2280, 2260, 2242, or 2230. It goes much deeper than that. Check it out on YouTube if you want more info. Summoner was developed by Volition and published by THQ, not Square. The Bouncer was Square.
I thought that was wrong.
But Summoner was not. Limsa Lominsa is the Lanosian capital, run by former, mostly pirates, with lots of Rodagan around, basically giants. So I remembered Limsa Lominsa, but I couldn't remember what that was specifically. Lalafell is the race I couldn't remember, which is basically the Tarutaro of 14. And the elves, Ian, are the Elezen.
Elezen.
And Sega Sammy is a holding company that owns Sega, not a branch of Sega. Sega Sammy is bigger than Sega, more than Sega. End corrections music, please. Let's kick off the gaming news with something happy, with a silver lining in this industry. Sometimes things aren't always happy, so it's nice to focus on the joy from Harrison Holt McHale via our Patreon, $5 and above subs. Thank you. Super Blind Man on Twitter, real name Brandon Cole, is a blind games accessibility consultant heavily involved on The Last of Us Part 2 and regularly on other AAA games. He's extremely passionate, and Sony recognized that passion in a wonderful way. Today, in addition to the review units he received a couple weeks ago, Sony sent him an acrylic boxed PS5 into which is engraved in Braille the words, Brandon Cole plays about more than what we see. It's about what we touch, what we hear, perhaps most of all, what we feel. Thank you for working so hard to teach us that. This is for you. Play has no limits. Cheers, Harrison.
Yay.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yay. Send more of those out. Speaking of the PlayStation 5, it launched. Woo! We should spend a lot of time, or as much time as we possibly can, talking about these experiences. The PlayStation 5 launched today. The Xbox Series X launched 2 days ago. That is, of course, not speaking at all to if you have one listening at home. Hopefully you do if you bought either of those consoles. But some people got delayed. Some shipping mistakes always happen. I want to kick things off, though, by checking in with everybody and seeing who got what. Ben Moore, I would like to start with you. What did you get? Did you get both? When did you get them? Are you enjoying them?
Yes. You know the answer to that already.
Well, did you get them, though? Did you buy them is one question. Did you actually get them, physically at your house?
No.
Nobody snatched them from your front porch. You got it.
Yeah. I personally bought both the Series X and the PlayStation 5. I got them both okay. I got the Xbox Series X 2 days ago, and it's been nice because I've been able to actually put some meaningful time into that, both with Yakuza Like a Dragon for the review. And then I played some Watch Dogs Legion. I played some Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I, of course, played some Dead by Daylight. And so I've gotten to run through the paces in the Xbox Series X. I really have not gotten to mess with the PlayStation 5 at all. I got it today, the day that it came out. But just haven't had a chance to really do anything with it. It is transferring data from my PS4 to my PS5 right now. That is the extent, really, of my time with the PlayStation 5.
Bloodworth, how are you doing on your acquisitions?
Yeah, things went really smoothly for me, despite the craziness of the pre-orders. Walmart stuff went pretty well. Like my Xbox was weird because, well, first of all, the PlayStation 5 extra controller came like a week and a half early, so Damiani got one of those as well, and so that was nice to just like, all right, well,
me too.
Plug it in and charge it.
I did get that.
And then my Xbox came a day early. It came on the 9th, so that was unexpected.
Must be nice.
And the delivery person didn't knock on the door or anything. I was going out to run errands and like, oh, here's a box on my doorstep. I guess that's my Xbox. Wonder how long that's been sitting there.
I had a really awkward moment because today I was like anxiously awaiting my PS5, and we were recording the gen that was, and that's a really long shoot. And so I like kept opening up the door to see if it was there, because just like Bloodworth, my Xbox Series X was delivered and no one knocked. They just kind of left it there. So I kept opening my door to see, like every so often, to see if they had delivered the PS5. And the last time I opened it, it was like as the delivery guy was coming up the stairs, and we both just kind of looked at each other awkwardly, and I was like, is that for me?
That's funny. Yeah, so I was able to get the Xbox set up. I haven't really got a lot of time into anything yet because I've been working on a whole bunch of other stuffs in my review and stuff too. But and then my PlayStation 5 and my Xbox spare controller both came today. And the spare controller is nice, the blue one.
Oh,
That
cool.
is really sexy, Daniel
Yeah.
Bloodworth.
Audio listeners missing out. That sexy blue controller.
But yeah, so it was kind of a similar situation though, to where they didn't knock. I was just checking every once in a while, but I'd heard just like that slight thump. There's just a slight thump that I'm like, I think that might be it. And I go out, and there was the PS5, and then later I think that might be the second thump, and kind of like Ben, like I saw the guy walking down the stairs as I went to pick up the controller. I was like, and it wasn't awkward. We just said hi real quick.
Jolly holiday vibes, man. You know, hoof prints on the rooftop.
But yeah,
that
and then I went through the whole
next gen.
transfer process. I played a little bit of Astrobot while that was transferring data from my PS4, but that's been the extent of it so far.
Ian, did you get the consoles? I'm not sure if you were going to get an Xbox, but did you get a PlayStation?
My PS5 arrived while we were shooting Gen that was, so I had to take a break during part 2 to go and make sure it was inside.
How oddly
and then
appropriate.
Omar was setting his up, and mine was there in the box. And then after Gen that was, I got to hook it up, and now I'm dealing with PSN being garbage as I'm trying to download Demon Souls. I did all the setup stuff, and Omar said his Demon Souls downloaded in 20 minutes total.
Mm-hmm.
And mine, when I left right now, it said 5 hours. So I'm kind of like freaking out.
Are you on Wi-Fi or wired?
It's on Wi-Fi, both of them. His was on Wi-Fi too.
Oh yeah, it makes such a difference.
Well, he got it in 20 minutes on Wi-Fi, so I don't know. But now he's trying to download a bunch of other stuff, and it's like just not working. So I think PSN is getting slammed.
Yeah. The same thing happened with Xbox, where there were some days where I was for the review process, I was downloading stuff, and it would download at 400 megabit per second in the studio, and then that night when we did the stream, it was trying to get Devil May Cry. It was like going between like 15 and 20, so
Wow.
we were not going to get Devil May Cry in
to
time.
the studio. Even though I've got gigabit internet, or 900 down allegedly. Usually it's like 300, but yeah, I think it's on their end.
Yeah, it's on the services. Yeah.
I skipped the PS4 sync thing because what am I gonna sync? Nothing. That's last gen. That's garbage.
Ooh.
I transferred
Demon
all
Souls
my,
only.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
I transferred all my stuff over. That was nice. That went so fast because I did the thing where you connect the two with the LAN cable, and there was like 5 or 10 minutes where you couldn't do anything, and then it went to the PS5 home screen and just continued it in the background, and so I was just able to play while it kept going, and then I got a notification that it was done, and like, cool.
Nice.
I don't want that eating up hard drive space.
Bloodworth, you mentioned Devil May Cry, and I saw some comments that were like, how can you be excited for Devil May Cry? It's just, they're just releasing the same game again. And here I am with my Xbox Series X playing as Virgil, it running gloriously, it looking glorious. I'm having the time of my life listening to Bury the Light, and just like inside I'm just laughing, and I'm like, you're missing out, man. I'm sorry.
And that is, I think, where a lot of people are in between current gen, excuse me. We are in the current gen. We can't talk about it being next gen. Old gen.
There is no next gen.
There is no next gen. Well, there is. It's sadly a long ways off. We have to deal with this gen for a couple years. but a lot of people are battling whether to play current gen games or whether to catch up on old gen games. Are going to run a lot better. That being said, Ben, you mentioned some stuff that you had already tried out. What are you, when you get some me time with either of these consoles, what are you really looking forward to? What's like your number one game? Now that you've posted your review of Like a Dragon, so this is not something that you have to do for work. It's like, no. I'm really curious to see the Series X or the PS5 run whatever this is.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brandon. Because it would be Like a Dragon, but that thankfully, I was fortunate enough to be able to review that, so that's already kind of like off the table. Demon Souls for sure, and Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition are kind of like the two that are there. Spider-Man as well. I think the thing with Spider-Man is I'm going to love it, but I think I'm just going to probably go through it so quickly, just like I did with original Spider-Man. But I don't know. I also played a little bit of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and I've been kind of skeptical of that game, but I really liked the intro quite a bit, and so we'll see if that ends up hooking me down the long run. But yeah. I've enjoyed that as well.
Ben, I can't deal with messages. Messages from Huberman and Slack. He's like, Jones, this is gonna be your favorite Assassin's Creed ever. I'm like, stop it, please. I gotta want to try to get through Pathless. Ian, I'm assuming your answer is Demon Souls. Is there anything else on the horizon that will not be occupying your time on these consoles?
Yeah, no,
man.
I mean, if I get a code or something for Miles, maybe I'll play it.
Whenever PSN gets
I'll probably buy it either
out.
way. But
Blood, what's on your list when you get your me time?
Yeah, well, I do want to actually finish Astrobot because I poked here and there in the studio, but I haven't finished that. So I want to get all the way through that, and I want to get the DualSense in my wife's hands and get her reactions to it. But yeah, Demon Souls for sure, Spider-Man for sure. Assassin's Creed is daunting because it's so giant, but it is.
Oh, I'm diving right in on Series X, baby.
It's so
Pathless
pretty on
first
Series
for
X.
review for next week, and then just.
It's super pretty on Series X.
Let's go! I'm excited.
I haven't seen the PS5 version, so maybe it's pretty. I'm sure it's pretty there too. But for whatever reason, we got Series X codes on that one. I guess because it was 2 days earlier. But
Brendan, I definitely have not spent that much time with it, just a couple of hours, but I wasn't that impressed visually with Watch Dogs Legion on the Series X. It in comparison, I think, to Valhalla, and that game, it just wasn't clicking with me. I definitely didn't think it was terrible, but not.
I played that. I played that on PC, and the load times were really fast, and so
nice.
I wonder if they kind of streamlined the whole thing to just work well, as opposed to
the load times were fast.
Yeah. But I saw some people posting some fun glitches of that game, as is true and expected, and I certainly look forward to them in every single open world game when that launches. PS5 remote play is a thing. We didn't talk about this that much. I don't know if going back to that Cerny press conference, if that's something that he mentioned, but you can put a PS4 somewhere else in your house, or you can download an app on PC or mobile, and you can remote play to your PS5. Obviously, it's going to run way better in your house as opposed to mobile. Goes to 1080p, 720p, and 540p. Cool. Does this change the game for anybody?
That's something you could already do on PS4.
It's something that Sony's done a lot of, yeah. I mean, the PSP and Vita play
I don't
and stuff.
have a lot of experience with doing that. That's not been something that I've hopped into. I don't know if anybody else has, but
with Vita.
Yeah,
I did it with my Vita once or twice.
I have done it with Vita, and it's actually really nice. Yeah, I actually played some 13 Sentinels that way.
But using your old PS4, I think is a good way of going about that. It's funny because I've been thinking about what to do with my entertainment center now that the new consoles are really unlike any other generation before, super just replacing the old ones. Well, I guess the PS3 really replaced the PS2, but we've had a gap. We've had that gap, right, where it's you kind of needed both for a bit. But yeah, since they're both replacing the old ones, I'm like, what am I going to do with the old ones? Because I'm definitely going to be keeping the PS4 because PT's on that thing, and that's worth more than the console itself. But the Xbox One X, I think I'll just use this as a Blu-ray player because then I don't have to worry about flipping HDCP on or off on the machine I'm recording from. So
sure.
And it handles it automatically on Xbox, but it's finicky, so.
I'm going to launch my PS4 into the sun.
Nice. You get the video. That'll be a good, easy update.
Oh, yeah. It's all broken, yeah.
Mine sucks.
I lost sight of it. I'm assuming it went into the sun. I don't know where it is
it's
anymore.
Probably up there.
Yeah.
I think this is a really cool feature that just based on my own personal situation, I can't see me using right now because I live in like a tiny, tiny, tiny apartment. And it's like, well, there's one TV there and there's one TV like 5 feet that way. And that's it. And that's all we have room for. And so I just don't know why I would remote play it when they're right next to each other. I just don't know when that situation would come up.
When we get the Ben Moore manor, then we're very useful.
Yeah. Likewise,
Well, I
Ben,
spend all my money on video games. How am I going to afford a manor?
build a manor out of game boxes. Would you, likewise, Ben, would you tell Phil Spencer, like, don't worry about this? Like, is this something Xbox should do? Would this be a boon for Xbox owners? Or, you know, it's like, nah,
You might be able to do this, Brandon, on Xbox. I can't say, like, off the top of my head, but I think there might be some similar solution.
Well,
xCloud, you can do it on the phone and stuff.
right.
Yeah, but I mean, I think separate from just doing xCloud. But yeah, I think you might be able to remote play your Xbox to something else.
The power of that system. Thank you, Ian. Clickety clack. But speaking of PT, there are just a lot of interesting tidbits that happened this week from Sony. Michael McWhirter at Polygon tested PT on his PS5 when he first got it, and it worked. Now it doesn't.
Oh, what?
Conspiracy.
They broke it on purpose?
Conspiracy. Either it's Sony or with McWhirter. Hard to say.
This headline says it doesn't support streaming to a Windows 10 PC. But how to remote play Xbox Series X games on your phone is a thing, apparently. So, whatever.
Xbox games are extremely accessible. Let it be known. I'm not going to be saying that. Ari Nadas at Kotaku pointed out playtime statistics are there for every PS5 game. So if you want to go, there's just a lot more information per game.
Yeah, you have to go into your profile, and then there's like a games section under that. So that the top right, I was looking at that for Bug Snacks. I think sometimes it doesn't update as quickly as you think it would in real time. Like I don't know, like I think sometimes it would just like it'll wait and then update later, because I would notice like, wait, it said 3 hours when I ended my last session, and now I played like another 4 hours and it still says 3 hours. But then I came in the next day and it had updated, so I don't know exactly how it tracks it.
The PS5 could support 1440p in the future. Does not now, but possibly could. I guess they could just say that, even if they don't have no intention to actually do it.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Right. Something you should know if you're setting up your PlayStation 5, the microphone is set to on. That is on the PlayStation 5 DualSense controller. That sucker is just on. So if you go and you play a multiplayer game, the multiplayer game is going to be like, yeah, you're ready to go. You want to talk to people right now. And they're going to be hearing everything that you're saying. If you want to not have that be the case, set microphone status when logged in quotes, to mute. If you don't want to be broadcast to everybody.
I've had that happen, actually.
Yeah, there is the mute button as well, but yeah, it's probably better to just set it default.
And almost as bad as that PT news, according to Polygon, The Last Guardian will only run at 60 frames per second on PS5 if you have the disc. So you got to put that disc in there if you want that 60 FPS, according to Polygon.
What if you don't have a disc?
Weird.
I don't have a disc drive.
I
guess I'll never play that broke-ass
then
game.
it just won't run at 60 FPS.
That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but okay.
It's next gen.
Bears further testing, I suppose.
Sometimes things don't make sense. Sony will no longer service launch PS4s, but only in Japan. These things don't make sense. But nevertheless, they are happening. And Horizon Forbidden West is anticipated in the second half of 2021.
Okay.
Did that sound about right?
I was thinking it could have been earlier, because the whole thing of them saying it's coming out on PlayStation 4 as well really made me think that they were eyeing this as a launch game, and then it had to get pushed because of COVID. But
totally thought this was going to be a launch game. I think that was like, I guess, looking back, dumb on my part, but I was like extremely locked in. Don Casanova could have come up with some really wacky bets around Horizon. I would have bought all of them. So I was surprised, but then the moment they said 2021, I was like, oh, this will probably be 2022 then. Like my perspective on how far that game is, I guess, was off, or when they started it. Gran Turismo 7 and Ratchet supposedly in the first half.
That's not a surprise for Ratchet. It is a surprise for Gran Turismo.
I thought so as well. Although that is
Gran Turismo, they always say they're coming out, and then they just don't.
Franchises wait for delays, I think.
With Gran Turismo feels weird to me.
Yeah.
And that was in via a trailer that just launched with some launch dates attached to it, some updates on stuff. Before we move on to the Xbox, just in general, the PlayStation 5 launch, we don't have to grade this sucker, but do we think the future is bright? Do we think it's going to have a nice holiday? Do we think?
It's an A+ if my Demon Souls is downloaded when I go out there. If it's not, it's a fucking F.
Brennan, it's just really unfortunate that we're recording this podcast today instead of tomorrow, because like tomorrow I could give you detailed, like, this is what I think about all of these different things regarding the interface and games specifically, but I'm just transferring data right now and downloading stuff. Yeah. And so it's hard for me to comment one way or the other.
What's the vibe in the room? How does everybody?
Optimistic.
Optimistic,
Very optimistic.
yeah.
It's definitely, I've definitely
happy.
like had that anticipation. Like, again, waiting for that box was like, I was just, I basically was setting alarms like after like 7 o'clock. Like, okay, every hour, wake me up again. But it was very nice for that to be, for me at least, for it to show up in the morning rather than having to sit around all day waiting for it. And yeah,
Lucky boy.
I'm excited.
Also launching this week, the Xbox Series X and S, 2 consoles. Haha.
Yeah.
There's different versions of the PlayStation 5, but these are different names. These 2 completely different consoles. We've been through all the settings. You know how different they look. One is definitely a lot smaller than the other. Put them both together, they made the biggest console launch in Microsoft's history. Yay!
Okay.
Xbox Live also went down for 2 hours the day that it launched, beginning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, but it happens. And Phil Spencer tweeted, "We are working with retail to resupply as quickly as possible." A lot of people talking about it. Seems surprised. I don't know what to say when I see people online. They're like, "Man, I checked and it was gone." It's like, yeah, you're probably used to that by this point, right? just don't be surprised. These things are going to be extremely hard to get. These things would be hard to get on a good year, I think. I think people who want to put us up against Sony based on who sold the most consoles lost the context of what gaming is about today, says Phil Spencer. What? There are 3 billion people who play games on the planet today, but maybe only 200 million households that have a video game console. In a way, the console space is becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of the overall gaming pie. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've been listening to businessmen say this for like 10 years. And I'm not even saying that it isn't true, but I sure do think there are a lot of people interested in consoles.
The things these men say barely matter.
These are the guys that are staring at the numbers. We speculate, we talk about attitude and emotion and, the sales, they go up and down. These dudes just staring at these numbers all day. That's all they know,
It's all they care about.
Yeah, I mean,
it's why they have the jobs they do.
It's a weird thing to bring up when you're launching a console, and it goes back to like everything about their strategy is not about these consoles.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, we're launching this new console. Nobody cares about consoles.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Like, what are you doing?
You want this console? Console suck. Buy a console. I'm sorry, that's fun. It's not. Yeah.
We have 2 new consoles. They don't matter. Don't buy them.
Right.
Yeah, but it's I mean, he's not wrong. And once like Game Pass and xCloud like managed to really get widespread on phones and tablets and cheap laptops and all that kind of thing, like their market will be dramatically different. But while they're selling consoles as one of their primary forms of business, it just seems kind of hilarious.
I feel like this could age terribly, but this just reminds me of that period of time. I feel like from like maybe 10 to like 2015, where there were just all these think pieces just constantly of like, mobile gaming is the future. Mobile gaming is the future. It's going to kill traditional console gaming. It's going to go away. This doesn't matter anymore. Go mobile, go mobile. Like, I just remember it was just constant, these sorts of conversations. And mobile gaming is huge. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish the size of it, but the doom and gloom that was spread and how it has affected the console business did not at all play out the way that I think some people were theorizing it would.
Ben, I agree with you. I think we need to embrace our mobile overlords. I think we need more synergy. I think we need to bring more marketing.
Brandon, this
all
is
that
filthy.
stuff.
But I mean, the
more
point
podcast
is,
time.
they're selling a machine and touting, being able to do 4K, 120 hertz, et cetera, et cetera. You're not gonna do that over the cloud. At the best, you'll get like some compressed 4K running at like 6,000 bit rate or something. But it's just you're gonna need the console to some extent to give the experiences that you're pushing to consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's cloud gaming is definitely coming along, but it's going to be tough for that to be the sell for everybody.
I think that there's going to be sold more PlayStation 5s than Xbox Series X's and S's put together. But I mean, biggest console launch in Microsoft's history. Things are looking up. I'm stoked for Phil
but
and the team.
They didn't give numbers though, right? That was the whole point of that.
Yeah. And I'm dying to see what the fine numbers, especially the sales numbers comparing the X to the S. But to move away from an executive and toward the system architect, Andrew Goosen, who worked on the Xbox, told Digital Foundry, regarding the Xbox Series S, we wanted to make sure that there was an entry level at the right price point so that we could really advance the generation rather than hold it back. I've heard that Series S is going to hold back the next generation, but I actually see Series S advancing it because by doing Series S, we'll have more games written into the characteristics of the next generation. So just kind of like these base things that Series S does that Series X does as well. The ironic thing is that we did look at Xbox One X and we couldn't get it down to the price point we wanted to get. So I look at the Xbox Series S and it's cheaper than an Xbox One X. I think that more X's are going to sell at launch. I'm curious what that number is going to look like this holiday. If when people actually get in, because nobody can get consoles right now that haven't gotten pre-orders or gotten lucky this week. But I'm curious how that number is going to fluctuate.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll even see it this holiday, but I am curious over the long term whether people who is going to just say, yeah, the S is fine, the S is good enough. How many people there are that are like me that haven't even upgraded to a 4K TV yet, because they can't afford it. So it's like, and if the S can essentially run the games to close to the same performance at 1080p as the X is doing at 4K, then, for those people, then that's fine, especially if it's, some households like, family doesn't like having a console in the living room, and so the console's in another room. So you've got your big TV in the living room, and then you just play games somewhere else. So there's a lot of situations where I think that it'll work. So yeah, I'm actually very curious to how the S is going to play out long term.
And it's nice to see people, that's their console choice. That was the Xbox that they wanted to get. A lot of people on launch day like, woo. That is there's definitely no concerns. I saw a lot of people rejoicing that their PlayStation 5s and Series X's just fit. They were like not like, yay, checking out the HUD or like, man, this controller's great, but just like, whew, clearance. If you've ever rented if you're a moving van and like you have to go to like through an underpass, the freeway, and you're just like, man, I didn't do the math, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to clear this.
I just thought of another weird little use case for someone like Ian, who's like, hey, I've got a banging PC. Why the crap am I going to buy this Series X?
Bang it.
But if you want to have, one in another room in the house or whatever, and again, you just sync the cloud save just syncs up between them.
It's written to the characteristics.
Yeah.
I'd have to subscribe, which I do already anyway, but I'd have to subscribe on both the console and the PC, I think, for live or whatever.
Mm-hmm. I think your live would be covered, wouldn't it? I don't know.
I had to subscribe to console Xbox Live to play Sea of Thieves multiplayer with Sophia, because when I'm at her place, she's got an Xbox X or whatever, Xbox One, and so I play Sea of Thieves on there, and she plays on her PC. But when I'm here, I play it on my PC. So I had to. I'm paying like $15 for an Xbox that's not even mine.
Yeah, I think that's where they get you with Ultimate, because then that just covers all of it.
Maybe I should look into that, or maybe that's what I did. I don't know. It's all confusing. There's like 8 different programs.
Xbox also got their share of some weird news this week. Somebody posted that their Xbox was on fire. It was overheating and smoking. Turned out
I think these were hoaxes.
it was just vape.
Oh, yeah. They're vaping into them.
As it always is.
Somebody
Right.
vaped
Yeah.
their Series X, and what I love about that is that lasted 2 seconds. The person was just like, "Hey, my console's out." I'm just kidding, it's vape. They were so quick to admit, no. Just
I saw
pull on your
Microsoft
leg.
was like, please don't blow vape smoke into your Xbox Series X.
This is bad, yeah.
Not what it's intended to do. But hey, people have been waiting a long time for these consoles.
If you got them, smoke them, I guess.
People have ideas. People are reporting, though, however, in the real world, that the Series X does have a disk drive problem. Some people are having some issues getting their disks in there, which is an issue.
Quit blowing vape smoke into the disk drive.
Right. Hopefully those things are not connected, and hard to get the read. Just like I remember Blood, the number of Switch reports when Switch first launched, of people just like, this is broken. A lot of different reports all over the place. You kind of have to wait till the dust settles a little bit. Speaking of dust settling, some people's Xbox Series X Amazon delays are as bad as December 31st, which is like those release dates that they just keep it at that date until January, and then they announce
that's not
it's
a real
delayed.
date.
Right.
That is what Amazon does.
But it's just basically, that's still a terrifying number to see.
Right.
It's like your console of choice. Amazon, you got that pre-order and you're stoked, and you see other people like, oh, I use Amazon, and hey, look at that. I'm, playing Gears 5. A bunch of EA games, however, silver lining, things are looking up. A bunch of EA games now are now in Game Pass. And Halo 4 is joining the Master Chief Collection and therefore joining Game Pass as well next week. So some fun things to look forward to in this current gen.
That's the PC version.
Correct.
Yeah.
Halo 4. Oh, so he's just joining that on PC? Okay.
Because it's already there on Xbox, so it's coming to PC Master Chief Collection.
Love
This
that
is true.
Game Pass.
NPDs
Woo!
happened. NPDs. These
Wow.
are little baby NPDs because they're third quarter NPDs. It's the quarter's 3 months instead of just 1 month. You think more things happen? Not a lot, but there are a couple things I want to talk about that stood out to me specifically. And again, kudos to Matt Piscatella from the NPD group that puts all of this stuff together. Sales for the last quarter, the third quarter of 2020, which was July to September, reached $11.2 billion across all of gaming. That's an increase of 24% compared to last year. This is on par with everything that we've been seeing lately because everybody wants to entertain themselves big time in 2020. So a lot of people are buying video games. But we are on the cusp, though, of a next gen. Oh, no, we were in the gen. We were on a cusp when these numbers happened. We are in that gen now. Looking at Q4, if sales reached $11.2 billion, what are we looking at in Q4 2020? What are sales? Are people buying as much more?
Wild,
How much more?
Right? It's gonna be crazy. I mean, is hardware included in this or no?
Yeah.
This is this is people, but this is people buying gift cards. This is people buying weird peripherals.
So it's gonna be through the roof. Like holiday season of a new console launch, like bonanza, and they're already sold out the pre-orders for everything. So
After the
man,
year
it's
we've
gonna be
been
awesome.
through,
After what we've been through, we
we're gonna
deserve it.
splurge on the games.
We deserve it, and we're still quarantined for God's
Yeah.
sakes in this country. So it's gonna be
Get the
people are gonna
Spider-Man,
be-
Timmy. It's okay.
Get the Spider-Man. We're spending
You
through the
deserve
nose
it.
this holiday season. Well, if you can afford it. I mean, that's the downside is, a lot of unemployment going on. So
Right.
because of the pandemic. So, yeah. But I think they'll sell through pretty much every unit that goes on the market.
Sega Sammy closed its arcade business, as we reported last week, which I was like, oh, well, they're getting out of the arcade business. They also asked 650 employees to retire. So, case in point, some of the people that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
That's a
do
bummer.
wonder how many people are, because I'm seeing a lot of should I buy into next gen now, and I don't recall how much of that we saw with the PS4, Xbox One, of people really wondering doesn't really seem like the update. Should I wait? That's one of the number one questions they want to ask someone that's spent significant time with either one of these consoles.
Yeah,
And it's
the
a hard
funny thing
question to
is,
answer.
Again, going back to the fact that it's so easy to play your older games on these machines. It's sort of it's in a weird way it actually makes it less of a barrier because if you're hopping in a next gen net, why not? Because you can just keep playing, even if there's not new games, you can keep playing the games that you already have in higher quality. So Not in every case, so, but a lot of games are, updating, including new features and new frame rates, and so it's sort of one of these things where the price is probably not going to drop for a year. So if you think you're going to get it within the next year, then I don't know, why not?
Yeah.
I wonder if we can compare pre-orders to retail, because that's been another question. Is a lot of people have waited until the 10th and the 12th to go out and give a shot of trying to actually get these consoles in person. So I wonder what that experience is like for people. NBA 2K21 was the third quarter's best-selling full game, and that's excluding DLC and microtransactions. So
Wow.
yeah, that's only adding on to that. And a huge winner for the third quarter, according to Matt, and I agree, was Among Us, which we've talked about on the podcast before, was the 7th highest player count in quarter 3.
That does
Wow.
not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
Woof. Obviously, things are going to change. There's a lot of big, multiplayer games that are coming out before the end of the year. But interesting to see, because you have these games that come out of nowhere. I think Fall Guys was in the same situation, but obviously Fall Guys is a budget, a team, a marketing team that's in a much different place than Among Us. Can Among Us bear this weight? Can we expect fun new things from Among Us in 2021, or are they just going to kind of be like, hey, we're just happy we're here?
The story of Among Us is pretty wild. Like how it came out a year and a half ago, languished, the team broke up, and then all of a sudden it just hit, and now they're like, okay, we're back. They've announced a 2. They canceled it to just focus on 1 because don't put your cart before the horse or whatever. And yeah, so it's an interesting case, and I do wonder how long it'll hold on, because I feel like Fall Guys was like the new Fortnite for 2 months, and then it's not to say that it's like totally fallen off, but it pun not intended, but it certainly was overtaken fairly quickly for one of these by Among Us. So we'll see, but I think that quarantine was the right time for this game, and I think that plays a huge role in why it became popular, because you can't lie to people in real life. You have to do it on the internet.
You have something like Breath of the Wild that we're finally seeing, like your Genshin Impacts and your Immortals now games that people have learned from Breath of the Wild, but we really see like just full on clones built from the ground up to really be exactly that thing. When the Among Us clones come around, I don't know if Among Us is still going to be kicking as hard as it is in terms of like, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to play this new stuff, I'll just go back and play Among Us. Again, I think it still has life. I wonder what the team is planning. Basically, is kind of what I'm getting at. I wonder what
there are some literal Among Us clones. Like people are building Among Us in Unreal Engine in 3D and stuff that came out this last week. It looks really good. The funny thing with that is that Among Us itself is, an interesting spin, but not a wholly original kind of it's a deception genre game. There are like countless games in this similar kind of vein. It's just interesting that this is the one that hit at the time it hit.
It's like Mafia with a graphical interface in a way.
Right, yeah, or One Night Werewolf or something, yeah.
The one of the things I find interesting about the way the game works, though, is just this whole crazy thing of all of these different settings and options, and how there's this quote-unquote right rule set to play with that keeps
and
changing.
It's like real finicky. Like plus 0.5 move speed is like the hotness, and it's just like, what? Okay, I'll take your word for it. Like, yeah.
It's like, do I need to calibrate the dead zone on my controller too? Like, what do you want?
You should.
Yeah, I think like it was funny. I didn't notice the comments at the time, but I noticed like in Discord, Omar said something about the settings after we played. He was like, "Woof, those settings," and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. The reference.
Well,
of,
he
like,
was
playing different.
aghast.
Yeah, playing.
He
with
was
different
aghast
people.
that we weren't using visual tasks, because it makes it way harder. Like the settings we were using are definitely for people who are better at that game than us.
Hard mode for sure.
Like people who stream it every day.
Well,
we should have been using like visual tasks.
One thing's for sure, every one of these Allies is older than the age of 24. We are in the minority when it comes to the player base of this game. My godson was one of the Among Us characters for Halloween. We are not the target demographic. Apparently, that 24 or younger demographic, 69% of Among Us players.
My wife is a teacher, and she came home one night, and she's like, "Do you know that game all the kids are talking about?" And it took me a while. It was a very vague description. It took me a while to get there, but I actually found out that it was Among Us, so can confirm that.
Interesting.
It's the hotness among kids. At least,
I would ask that question every month. I would be like, "What is it?" Because I always, whenever I feel bad for kids with like Switches and stuff, because I'm always like, "What are they playing?" And they're like, "Leave me alone, creepy old man." It's like, sorry, I'm just, I want to know, like, what is it?
I notice myself doing that when I'm like,
why is it always
at
Pokemon?
the airport or something. When I see somebody playing like a Switch, I'm like, "Ooh, what is it?" And then I'm like, "No, you can't do that. That's invading,
I'm always like,
invading that personal space."
I do it anyway.
Sorry.
I was just gonna say we can see through our neighbor's living room window, and they play Switch a lot. So anytime they're playing, like I saw them playing the Age of Calamity demo, and I was just like,
nice.
I was like, all right.
But no, the one that to me feels like the generational divide is just like how Hello Neighbor has kind of like been a big thing among the kids, and like I've never had that much interest in that game.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's a very specific kind of huge success if you hit that demographic. Like stuff like obviously Fortnite did it, and Minecraft obviously, but like Five Nights at Freddy's was like super huge in that younger demographic. Among Us, like you make so much money. Pokemon obviously, like that's the biggest.
I got a word for you.
Cow.
We don't
when
talk
is
about
our
on
next
this podcast.
Easy Allies meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roblox. I got two Roblox headlines to talk about this week. Roblox making big plays these days.
Jeez. Okay.
Roblox, everybody. Oof.
What are they?
We'll get to them. Yeah, teasing.
Headline tease.
Aha! You're gonna listen to this
Brandon
podcast more. I love that every day is another day somebody beginning or ending their fiscal year. It's either the beginning of a quarter or the end of a quarter or the end of a half or something. Wouldn't you know it, we're at the end of the first half of Square Enix's current fiscal year. We made it. The end of the first half.
I've been waiting for this.
But it's always a good time because every now and then these companies go, all right, fine, here's how much money we made. And so it's neat to dig in because there is a fascinating duality amongst recent big games from Square Enix. And I want to talk about the future of Square Enix and potentially what that could look like at the end of this year and into 2021. Revenue for the last first half, so just imagine 6 months prior to now, was up 43% to $1.67 billion. Profits, specifically, were up $155.4 million. So yay, but 12.08 million units sold, split almost evenly between physical and digital, which is nice to know. This is compared to 8.6 million copies during the same time last year. Easy, Ian, you all right? Your camera dropped. Careful.
I'm just worried about my demon souls. You know?
Are they sucking power out of the camera to finish that download?
Yeah.
So units sold were up, profits up, and everything because of the big game from Square Enix in 2020.
And there goes my
Marvel's
internet.
Adventures, Final Fantasy VII Remake. 330 million in sales, 96 million in income. Their huge success in the first quarter. Don't really know if there's anything to say there. Not a huge surprise.
It's almost like people wanted that remake
Right.
for a really long time.
Yeah. It's a good investment. And it paid off, so hopefully, Ben, they're spending the right amount of money working on the next thing, and we can get that sooner rather than later.
You mean the rest of the remake?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I try not to label it in any specific way because we don't know, what's
Right,
it
right.
going to be, what's it going to be called, what's it going to look like.
Compounding my demon soul stress, my internet just went down. I'm in the call with you right now, but my computer says no internet. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, there it's back. Okay.
Hold.
Okay.
The real Dark Souls starts here.
Hold.
Get
Because,
to the tree line.
because here's where it gets good. The second quarter, though. So the first quarter, they're kicking it off. Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yeah. 7 Remake did really, but wait until second quarter when we bring you Marvel's Avengers. Marvel's Avengers made $229 million, but that was a $48 million loss.
Yeah.
So that was a different story from the remake there. And I enjoyed Remake. I was looking forward to that as well. I played it. I had a great time. I was hoping Marvel's Avengers would do better than this. It didn't. Now I'm sad. What? Oh, and we've totally lost Ian. Or Ian's fallen asleep.
It does look like Ian is asleep in the call, which is very funny.
That is funny.
Maybe we can get him back. Maybe he won't necessarily miss being a part of the Marvel's Avengers conversation. Ben, is there a way for them to save Marvel's Avengers? If you were Square Enix, would you spend more money on Marvel's Avengers, or would you pull a Quibi?
The thing about Marvel's Avengers that's really hurting it is the lack of meaningful updates. I mean, the delay to Hawkeye was rough, and it just like where is that game going? I guess because I think it's just competing against so much that the more that time goes on, that they're not able to kind of convince people. People are just going to move on, and I think a lot of people already have moved on. So they're not in a good position currently, I don't think.
Alakazam, Ian's back.
Ha!
I'm assuming you rejoining the call for the podcast also means that your Demon's Souls download is continuing.
It is working again.
Yes.
I made sure. When I went out there, Omar was behind the couch. The modem was unplugged because everything had gone down.
Because I want Danny Bloodworth's take on exactly how bad Marvel's Avengers launch was, but I want to make sure that you're going to be playing Demon's Souls tonight before we do that. You're set?
Here's hoping. When I went
Great.
back in here, it said 60 minutes.
Blood, you're Square Enix. What do you do with this game?
I don't know they can do much other than just keep rolling with it because, you know, the Marvel's a big contract. You know, this is a huge thing. I mean, remember when they first teased it? Like,
I do.
So long ago.
I do.
Yeah.
That was it's like, how long does the CG video exactly take? 2 weeks? The deal was inked 2 weeks before that day. Like, they literally were just like, what are we showing? Like, I have the hammer and the shield. Show what's Captain Guy's hammer and what Lightning Guy's hammer. Yeah, shield. Just put those in there. CG video. Everybody will go crazy. But that you bring up a good point, Blood, which is, can you imagine how much money they thought they were going to make? They were like, oh my goodness, people are going to go apeshit for this game.
I feel like this always happens with them in Crystal Dynamics, though. Remember the Tomb Raider thing a few years back? And they were like, oh, it made all this money, but it wasn't enough for Square Enix. You know, and it just feels like the budgets or the projections are somehow off, or, you know, they didn't seem to realize that waiting until all the hype had died down for Avengers was too long.
Yeah. Ideally, you release like right around Endgame or Infinity War.
Yeah. But that's what I was going to say is
everyone's
like
hungry in between.
But like that could have bit them too because it's a different continuity, different like different versions of those characters. Like for it to have been successful, I guess they needed to just do an MCU version or something.
I mean, they pretty much did that. Like, it's technically different, but it feels like the MCU. Like, it feels like that's the style that they're going after.
Do you think making it into a live game hurt it a lot on both ends? Like, made it more expensive and less desirable for people? Or do you think people are into the live idea?
I think the live service part of it would have been okay if they had done the live service part better than they did. I think probably the critical thing was the execution of it rather than being live service.
I don't see removing that from this game at all, though. I think that is the beating heart of their concept of how successful this game could have been. They're really doubling down on it. Square's like, we can do this. We can try. And again, this is according to analysts that have spoken to Square, that they're like, no, this is something that we definitely want to continue investing in. I just hope they hang on because I selfishly like it. It's fun. But
it's funny to see a game, and I haven't played much of this besides our stream, but like, or I just watched it. But it's funny to see a game try to be Destiny in a certain sense when it feels like Destiny is still trying to figure out what it should be. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the model you're aping isn't even there yet. Like they haven't even cracked the code like necessarily all the time consistently.
Like I think Division
Division
2 I think is a fantastic model for this, this how all this stuff is priced out, how the content's labeled and everything, and their DLC was delayed, it's like, so if they wanted to be Destiny, that you did it, like you certainly achieved that goal.
You wanted to be Destiny 2, but you're Destiny 1.
Yeah. We just picked the wrong Destiny to be. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered was also bad. That did not go well. I don't know how well that really could have gone. That seems like one of those things that they test and are just like, it is what it is. Just get it out there. Looking back now, Blood, are you mad at Crystal Chronicles Remastered, or was that just like...
I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. Like, the whole way you have to play through that game just doesn't make any sense in 2020. Like, it should have been... Yeah, the way progress works should have been entirely reworked, because it's silly. It's silly to expect everyone to go through that game 4 different times just to keep playing together. Like, it's absolutely unfathomable that they got through that production process and did all the QA testing and said, yeah, this is what people will like out of this game. It's crazy.
Outside of like the online issues with Crystal Chronicles, and I know this is gonna make some people upset and break some hearts, but I really liked Crystal Chronicles during the GameCube days. Like my memories of it are fond ones, but revisiting it with this remaster, I don't think that game holds up at all.
The co-op stream we did saved me $40.
Yeah, like it was just really slow, and the combat wasn't enjoyable. There just wasn't much going on. The places that we were fighting in weren't that interesting. Just like nothing about it was really gelling with me in the way that I'd hoped based on those fond memories.
And Trials of Mana was just okay. Again, sales weren't like spectacular. In Blood, you were like, yeah, it was
That's about... I mean, in a way, that's kind of what I expect. I mean, Mana has not been a big performer for... I mean, probably ever. I don't know. Like, I don't know if Mana's ever really hit the charts in the way other Square Enix RPGs have. And you're doing a remake of a game that was never released until last year in the United States. And so, yeah, I think that's somewhat to be expected. I think it's weird to say that it was only just kind of okay, because I feel like they've said it's done better than they were thinking it would be earlier. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling I'm getting mixed messages there on the comments on that performance.
Well, yeah, overall, revenue was up. Interesting to look at the numbers actually for Final Fantasy XIV. Revenue dipped in the first half, even as subscribers went up. So they actually have more people playing that game, but they're currently spending more and not making the money that they want to make. And so it's just interesting comparing, as we talked about, just this last quarter and just across 2020, just console sales and gaming sales. Like, everything is exceeding people's expectations. It really only is Final Fantasy VII Remake that's done really, really well for Square, at least in the last 6 months. Mobile revenue, though.
Oh boy.
Up 44% year over year. 615 mil.
The articles were right.
Yeah. Such mega hits as DQ Walk, Dragon Quest Tact, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which I downloaded on my phone and never played. I don't think I actually ever even booted that app up, but it just seemed like the thing. I was like, oh, it's free. I should probably get this.
Sophia has a cup at her apartment where our toothbrushes are kept. That is Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and so I see it like every time I'm there brushing my teeth, and I'm just like, that fucking... She got like a cup from E3 like 4 years ago or whatever.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
mobile's in your life, whether you actually focus on them or not.
All I really know about that game is that it has a bunch of like pop star collaborations every so often.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what it is.
Is it upsetting that number's that high, or is this something?
Nah, man,
no? Okay.
Get that money.
Good. That's of course how I feel. Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory launches tomorrow. How's that going to do this weekend?
Michael Huber's excited.
Yeah, I think that it coming out when the same time the new consoles are, with so many big games also happening at right this moment, I'm a little bit curious to see how well it'll do. I just wonder if it'll get swallowed up by everything else going on, but I don't know.
And it makes me want to play it without having barely played Kingdom Hearts at all. I want to jump into this one and just like not the target audience at all.
Right. And music though, there's a lot. Yeah.
I like music.
Kingdom Hearts is phenomenal music.
You and Don should stream it.
Tell me.
On the horizon for 2021 for Square Enix and beyond. Balan Wonderworld, Final Fantasy 16, Babylon's Fall, Outriders, Bravely Default 2, and Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2, a game I keep forgetting. It's a thing
I'm excited
That's not out yet.
that we're still holding on for. Yeah.
I'm actually excited for everything on that list except for one thing.
Yeah.
They are forecasting revenue to be up 11.3% to 2.81 bill for the last half of the year. So for the next 6 months, they think they're doing even better. Are we to presume that's because these things are, aimed to hit their marks? Outside, of course, the one game that you're not interested in, Ben. But do we think these games are going to bring them those numbers? Do we think they're going to turn things around and it's not just going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake and a bunch of other stuff, but they're going to have big numbers across all this stuff next year?
Well, you said Dying Light 2, right?
Yeah.
What the hell is going on with that game? Like, it's hard for me to be confident about it at all when it feels like it's vanished off the face of the earth.
I forgot. I thought it was out already. Because it's like similar to a few other games, I was like, oh yeah, that's out. It's like, oh no, it's not.
I didn't know Square Enix had gotten involved with it though. That's the thing that I'm scratching my head.
This is really weird, but I was playing some Dying Light like a week or two ago, and I was really into it. Like, I think that game has some cool stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
The dialogue's pretty bad, but it was bad in Dead Island as well.
Yeah. That was kind of the story focus that I'd come to expect from that genre.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. You're making tough decisions. You're changing the terrain.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Drop kicking zombies in the face. I'm way down. Bravely Default 2. I'll play it. I'm just curious. Blood next 6 months. You think they're going up 11%?
Sure. I mean, even something like Avengers can play into that. That's the. It's really just going to be a matter of whether they can pick people back up with this DLC and whether they can basically get the train running, like right now, like Ben was saying, like stuff that should have been out isn't out. And so they've got to get that thing going, and they've got to somehow attract people to come back to the game. And then that can help the game and it can help their profits and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It might be 6 months. It's hard to say because I don't know if all that stuff's not coming out in the next 6 months.
I don't think so.
I would be very shocked.
I don't know how you would quantify this, but somebody who plays a lot of games and bounces around with a lot of games, the feeling that I really hate with like ongoing persistent live service games is when you return after like 6 months or a year away and you're like, oh my God, like what is going on? I don't understand all this new stuff that they're adding. And you just can't, you really have to fight to get back into it. Like I had that feeling with Destiny 2 after spending so much time away, and I did get over it for sure. But I'm just curious if there's any way to like numerically measure how many people try to get back into something and they're just like, oh God, it's too much, and they run away.
Yeah, bounce rate, like sticky quality. It needs that sticky quality.
I would be fascinated by any sort of like survey or something on that.
They must have that kind of data, right? Like,
oh yeah,
YouTube tracks that. Like, I'm sure they're looking.
You see some user who just hadn't played some online service game in a long time and then played for like 10 minutes and then left again for like 4 months. And you're like, right, what could we have done in that 10 minutes?
What went wrong?
Grab them.
I mean, I got into Destiny 2 again after Shadowkeep, played it to level cap, and then stopped playing for the last like month or whatever. I just jumped in yesterday or Tuesday or whatever for Beyond Light. And I was already just like, wait, how do I do everything again? Yeah. Like, it was only a month, and I was like, I forgot everything.
I think once a year I go back to Fortnite and jump in. It's usually around the holidays. I'm like, fine, I'll play for a couple hours. And they're always like, hey, since the last time you played, we completely changed the systems. We apologize for the inconvenience. Here's a bunch of free currency. And I'm like, great.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Not even sure what I'm spending this on, but it's just fun. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Cracking packs. Also this week, here's some other headlines from video games. Stop me if you heard them. Stop me if you haven't. Stop me if you got something to add to any of these. Twice the people played Valhalla on launch day compared to Odyssey. That is according to Ubisoft. Always take those with a grain of salt. But up in their numbers with that Valhalla. YouTube was down for a bit. That doesn't happen very
Yeah,
often.
weird.
That was a little scary.
Yeah.
Saw some people who we definitely earn from YouTube. We appreciate the earnings from YouTube, but some people, that was more of the bigger piece of their pie, and they were like, "What if this is it, folks? What if it never comes back?"
I mean, definitely people have their livelihoods on YouTube, and it's very important to them, and I understand that, and I totally get that perspective. But there's also a small part of me that's like, it's a little sad when like this big service goes down and everybody's like, "Oh no!" Like like it's like an apocalyptic event. There's something weirdly, I don't know. It's scary, man. These things
Facebook
rule our
going
lives.
down, Twitter going down. They all have their own. Discord going down, Slack going down. They all have their own different moods, different chaotic situations. Speaking of chaotic situation, Twitch apologized for the mass DMCA claims, but it's still doing them. But they were just like, "Ooh, sorry." It's almost like they're in a bumper car or something, and you're just gonna run somebody over. You're like, "I've lost control. Sorry about that." Control's PS5 and Xbox Series X versions delayed to early 2021. Not super popular when they announced those, and so they were holding off those for a little bit. Kerbal Space Program 2 delayed again, this time to fiscal year 2023.
What?
Insane.
Bye, Kerbal
That's a
Space
long
Program
time.
2. There's a big story
I had
there.
that on
Don't
my
they need to
team.
like hire a whole team or something?
I don't have time. Yeah, it's a big long story. I don't have time to get into it right now. But all sorts of crazy reasons. But we haven't seen a ton of that game anyway. Sackboy Big Adventure will not have online co-op at launch. Bummer. Coming later this year. They are adding to it, but that would have been a nice thing to play with friends. I want to play video games with friends. The Medium has been delayed to January 2021. Nothing wrong there, presumably to dodge Cyberpunk 2077, like others have done before them.
Yep.
Bloodworth. Take-Two plans to buy Codemasters for $973 million?
Doesn't feel good.
Codemasters a bill? Wow.
I mean,
it's like I feel I know that, but I didn't know that. I think a lot of people wouldn't know that company may potentially be worth that much, but it doesn't seem.
Yeah, I mean, they've basically taken a lot of the UK racing developers under their wings, and so they've got multiple studios operating. F1 is huge, and they've got the newer studio that was originally a bunch of Drive Club devs, the Evolution guys. They made Dirt 5, the ones that are left, as well as whoever's been hired since then. They bought Slightly Mad, and so the Project Cars brand is under them too. So yeah, it's kind of crazy that this huge kind of amalgamation of UK racing developers, because now it's basically Codemasters and Playground Games is what's essentially left, and now Playground is owned by Microsoft, and Codemasters is getting acquired by 2K, and I hope that 2K or Take-Two, same parent company as 2K,
right?
But I just hope that Take-Two essentially leaves them alone, essentially makes them like how Private Division is, separate from a lot of their other, or like Rockstar kind of does their own thing compared to their other divisions. So I'm hoping that it will be similar to how Microsoft is acquiring companies, and it's like, okay, they're gonna have more stable foundation, and they'll just keep doing what they've been doing. But it's a bit of a bummer. I think I kind of felt the same thing with Double Fine, that it's like, yeah, they're gonna have more freedom to do everything they want to their budgets, but they're gonna lose that independence.
That's a good way to put that, Blood. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because Codemasters has been around, man.
You hear about Codemasters all the time. Codemasters is like
long time.
I mean, it's like it seems disingenuous to compare them to like a cockroach, but this is the kind of thing where it's like if like a nuke was to hit this industry, Codemasters would still be releasing racing games. Like they would, it's like, it's like,
and
Ian, it's like the post-apocalypse. You see the billboards, and it's just like, wait, that says that's next month. What? And it's like, oh yeah,
Formula
Codemasters
120XX. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, and like Rare, like their whole, their home base studio is like built on an old farm. It's crazy going to that. I've been there. I went there back Grid 2 reveal. They flew me out there, and it's crazy. You just go down all these farm roads, and then they take a left, and like, okay, we're at Codemasters now.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Cough up 973 mil. Ian, you posted this in Slack. There's a roadmap, which I didn't via Kickstarter, which makes sense now, but I didn't realize that Bloodstained's got a bunch more stuff coming. There's a new character due out before the end of 2020 and a bunch of other stuff that you're like, oh, right. There's all that insane money that they made releasing all these crazy tiers. We've already got some of that stuff. 2 Curse of the Moons now. But I
think the Bloodless character, I saw a trailer for it, might be out now.
So just something that, again, lots of games are releasing new stuff, but just a game I didn't, forgot was releasing new stuff. Should have added this earlier. According to David Gibson, industry analyst, Avengers cost at least $170 million, and volumes were 60% of that plan. To put that finances into perspective, Mass Effect Legendary Edition announced, a remaster of the original trilogy, which I'm for sure playing. I tweeted out, it was like, oh man, I'm so playing the first 2 games. People were like, no, you play, just play all 3. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, time for all 3.
I might just play 2. I don't know.
I'm very curious to see how 1 plays out, because that is going to be very, very interesting. Because it was, they were still figuring out what that series was going to be. And there's some very different aspects of 1 that didn't make it into the sequels that I don't necessarily want them to mess with, but at the same time they need to improve the gameplay. So what's it going to look like?
Will multiplayer be
I
in
never
Mass Effect
finished 3 so
2 though.
Andromeda is now on Game Pass, and BioWare confirmed that a new Mass Effect is in development that we're getting in 2030, whatever. But good day, it was N7, a good week for Mass Effect fans. Kudos to all of you. I will be joining your ranks next year. Dead by Daylight got a new killer, the Twins. Ben, what's up with the Twins?
Really fascinating stuff. So I've been addicted to Dead by Daylight, as everybody knows, but the Twins, so they're this new killer that falls into this fascinating category where I think they're really bad. They seem really bad. They don't seem like effective killers, but I think they're super creative. And of course, with tweaks and stuff, they can improve. It's just on the public test build right now. It's not actually live, so a lot is probably going to change. But what it is you play as a brother and sister, but the brother lives inside the sister's chest. And you could pop the brother out, and he's crawling around on 4 legs, and you can switch your control from the sister, who has the sickle, and control the brother, who doesn't cause the heartbeat effect or anything. And so you can run around the map, and you're extremely fast. You're just this little spider monkey running all over the place, and you can jump on survivors and injure them. And it's sort of like the jockey from Left 4 Dead 2. It's basically that effect. And then, you can switch control back to the sister once you've jumped on somebody, and either go after somebody else or try to down the person that got jumped on.
Can the brother kill someone, take someone down or hook them or
anything?
Yeah,
so if the survivor is already injured, Victor the brother can down them. If he hits them, if he pounces on them and they're already injured, he won't do the jockey animation. They'll just be downed.
I see.
But there's some pretty rough, hard counters to Victor. He can't do anything about lockers, so if you just go in a locker, this little brother is just stuck. You can also
the killer knows where you are then.
The killer knows where you are, but it's kind of this awkward thing where, since you're only controlling either the brother or sister at a time, everything is in the survivor's advantage, right? So it's oh, well, I know where they are. Oh, they switch back to the sister. I can get out of here because it's going to take them forever to get to where I am. If the brother misses his pouts, you can just crush him. You can just it's a really funny animation. You just kick him, and he's dead for a little bit, and then he comes back alive.
Right.
I feel like
gotta be careful.
This could work a little bit better if they did have some kind of AI pathing in a way that if you're as one character, you call the other one to you, rather than having to switch.
Yeah, I feel like you just end up wasting too much time. And the other thing that has happened is when you have Victor on you, you can choose to get him off, but what good survivors are doing is they're just leaving him on because if you do that, then the sister doesn't really have a killer power anymore. All they can do is
it's a tank move.
Try to move around and hit people with M1. And so there just seems to be a lot of counters to it. But what I will say is I think the idea for this killer is really creative. I actually haven't. I've watched a ton of streams of the killer and watched a lot of commentary of people. I haven't played as the killer yet because I'm trying to like spend blood points on them to the point where I actually feel like it's feasible. Wow. But I have played as the new survivor, and she's really cool. And again, I think she kind of falls in that category where her perks may not necessarily be the best, but they're really interesting. So one is you can run up to a locker and pretend like you open up the door. So you make the opening up the locker door sound, but you don't actually go inside of it. And then you don't leave scratch marks for 3 seconds. So you can try to bait the killer into thinking that you went into the locker when you actually ran away, and they have no way of tracking you. And it's just like really outside the box stuff that I'm like, oh, it's like you guys are really being ambitious here with these ideas, and that makes me really happy. That was your Dead by Daylight minute.
Give this man a timestamp.
Yeah.
Deathloop got a release date, May 21st, 2021.
Nice.
May 21st, okay.
Open Bionics teamed up with Konami to release a Venom Snake arm for below elbow amputees. The red arm. Lil Nas X is going to hold a concert experience inside Roblox. Look out, Fortnite. Step aside. Wow. Roblox is the new place. And the story is too fascinating not to include. Tommy Tallarico's oof death sound effect from 2000's Messiah was used in Roblox, and nobody knew what it was from. Like, it was like a meme before it was in the game, and then it became more of a meme after they used it in the game. And then Tommy Tallarico like knew he was like, yeah, people keep saying oof, I don't know what that is. And then somebody told him like, that's you, dude. That's you saying that from a game that came out 20 years ago that now is in this game. Go get your money, Tommy Tallarico. And so Roblox fans were like kind of bummed at Tallarico for a while. He's like, hey, I'm not trying to like extort this company, but I want my oof money. And so if there's going to be a default death sound now in Roblox as like the end of this month or something, there's like a cutoff day. And then after that day, it's going to cost $1 if you want to use his oof sound effect in your creations in Roblox. To show there's no bad blood. Tallarico, who is an audio engineer, has done video game, live, and has done, composed soundtracks to all sorts of games and done all sorts of advancements in gaming. Is working on the television. He's a crazy guy. Is making a big audio package for Roblox as well. So he's like, hey, no hard feelings, Roblox. Let's make some cool sounds together.
I'm not even sure I know what Roblox is. I'm old, I guess.
We're all old. We're over 24 years old.
Yeah.
That's old in this biz. It is time for Love and Respect.
Love and Respect.
Just a real quick thing about age, because I'm 31, but there are so many times where I think in my head that I'm 30, and this has never happened before, where I just have mistaken my own age.
It's about 30, I think that happens, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm 35, but I'm actually not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not like an uncommon thing. Like that happens to other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fun ride. Ben O'Donnell, this week when I've been taking my class outside, the 6 to 8-year-olds have been playing Among Us, and I've been deemed lucky enough to pick the imposter each round. If you were a kid today, which video game would you be mimicking on the playground?
They're playing it live action?
Yeah, they're playing like
that's awesome.
What game was that you were running around? I'm Solid Snake. What was it? What were you mimicking?
Mortal Kombat for sure.
Skitching? We would skitch behind each other's bikes on rollerblades and skateboards.
What
this was NES era, man. I wasn't. It was Transformers.
So I thought
G.I. Joe.
What would you do now? They're saying, what did you do?
I guess both answers apply. Sure. If you were a kid today. If you were a kid today, sure.
Yeah, I mean.
Dead by Daylight.
Yeah. Probably, yeah.
But I think
because that would be fun. Yeah.
If you could set it up, basically. If you could hit like a bunch of gym mats or something, like Fall Guys would be amazing.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Oh yeah, dude.
Fall Guys will be a live action show pretty soon. It's kind of destined to happen.
Absolutely, dude.
Oh, I mean, as a kid, like, acted out Pokemon stuff all the time, constantly.
We did X-Men a lot, too.
From Ian, greetings, allies. I have a question. How do you decide which language to play games in? I speak English and mostly play games using English voices, but for some games that can be immersion breaking to me. If the game's set in Japan, for example, I usually play in Japanese with subtitles. When I played A Plague Tale Innocence, I did something I've never done before, and I played a game through it in French. However, in the case of Ghost of Tsushima, the facial animations were only synced to the English voice acting, so I found myself more distracted when having Jin speak English, so I decided to switch back to English and start over. Do you have certain rules for how you choose what language to use in certain games? Love and respect, Ian from Seattle. Any hard and fast rules?
I mean, it's Huber always says like creator's intent and stuff, but like I always counter that the creator's intent is that you understand the language that's being spoken while you're playing, so you're not reading things while you're playing.
Fair.
Like, so I always play everything in English for that reason, because I want to focus on just like, you know, seeing the game and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, whatever. They wouldn't put it there if it wasn't their intent, you know.
I think everybody has different things that they get hung up on depending on the person. And since working in games, I've learned that a lot of people really care a lot about what language you're playing in. And I think that's totally fine. But I play games in Japanese. I play games in English. I enjoy both. I haven't... Like, there are sometimes if it's like a bad English dub, it's like, oh yeah, I would rather play in Japanese, but I wouldn't say like I have a code that I live by where it's like it has to be this way. The only thing for me that I have gotten pretty particular about that is weird, and I've mentioned it I think on this podcast before, is even if I'm playing in English, I'll put subtitles on. Like I've really gotten weird that I always need subtitles on. Just because like if I'm trying to get into the lore or something, I'm like, wait, what was that name? How did they spell that? Like, I get weirdly anal about that, and so I want that. But I'm not like hard and fast on the language.
Final Fantasy VII Remake I thought did a really good job with subtitles with all the people around town that you would have like little voices pop up. That I was like, oh yeah, thanks. I was doing something else and just wasn't really paying attention right now, or I was grinding and just like, oh, need to pick up that conversation.
The same voice line from that guy picking up that girl in the alley over and over again. Another thing, because I didn't realize I shared this view necessarily, but there was an article I read recently about Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, from Studio Ghibli, who said that he like doesn't like the way that most female Japanese voice actors voice characters, because he says that they're like doing it for men. And it's like salacious, and they sound like sexualized all the time. Basically, is like the gist of what he was saying.
Wow.
And I think I've kind of always agreed with that sort of. Like they always sound like weird.
He's got hot takes, man.
You know,
he does.
I said I didn't have any hard and fast rules when it came to language, but thinking about Yakuza, I got into the series with Yakuza 3, and the only one at that point that I had done in English dub was Yakuza 1, which I didn't experience until later. And so, like, Yakuza for me has, like, Japanese has been the only option for so long that it's just what I'm used to with it. And they've changed that now with Like a Dragon and Judgment, but I like hearing that world and that style in Japanese is just so familiar to me that I always choose Japanese, but I don't have anything against you if you pick English. I think that's fine.
Played a little bit of 1 and a little bit of Kiwami. A little bit of 0 and a little bit of Kiwami, and I definitely Japanese both times. So it's like, I definitely want to hear these original voices.
It's funny because with TV and movies, though, I'm like hard line. I'm full in line with Huber as he is on video games with film. Like, I don't like watching dubs on film. I prefer language of origin.
Was the Apocalypto from Mel Gibson? I gotta watch that one of these days.
You've never seen it?
I've not.
Historically, very inaccurate, but kind of a fun
So
movie.
is Braveheart, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
But yeah, for me, it's funny because it really, like, if I think about it, like, I don't know that there's anything other than Japanese that I switched to the original language. Like Plague Tale Innocence, is like, no, I'll keep this in English. And Metro, I play that in English too. I know Huber will play in Russian. So it really is like a very specifically Japanese thing for me.
Yeah, same.
But I guess for me it is something like Yakuza or Persona or AI Somnium Files, where like when this is taking place in Japan, it just feels like it makes sense to me. And I guess, maybe just from other, like anime and other media, like I'm comfortable enough with that language and how people talk that it makes more sense to me to play those things in Japanese rather than play in English. Whereas something like Xenoblade Chronicles or Final Fantasy, I'll keep that in English because this is just some other random world, even if there's a lot of Japanese influence in it. And also in those games, there's a lot of vocalization callouts. And I remember, like, was it Damiani was like trying to play like Ace Combat with Japanese at first, and just like it's too much. You can't read subtitles and fly a plane at the same time.
Yeah, right. That's fine.
Blood, you mentioned Xenoblade, and that is a really interesting series because like now the English accents are like essential to that series.
Right.
To me. Like it doesn't sound right if it's not that. And
British
it's
actors,
just,
yeah.
Yeah. That's a very interesting case.
I also enjoy something like a Medal of Honor, where subtitles might pick up, German soldiers or soldiers that are speaking another language. That it's like this isn't the kind of thing where like you need to hear this. It's just chatter in the background. But I've talked to people before that speak German, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even get subtitles. That was such an early game." And like, "Oh, but I can hear what they're saying, and it fits."
Wolfenstein does a good job with that as well.
Nice. From Cesar Villa, thank you for your unboxing videos, Blood. Very informative and well put together. I showed the PS5 one to the wife, the PlayStation fan of the family, and when she saw that gigantic thing next to you, her words were, "Oh God, I'll wait for the slim version." I guess I could end... but earlier today, I got to think there was no slim version of the PS4, was there? We bought only the Pro
There is,
2 years
actually.
ago,
There-
almost
yeah,
to the
there
date,
is.
not because we needed it. We still have around 20 PS3 game factory sealed, but it was a good price, and we could use another Netflix client for the TV downstairs, so we don't need a PS5 in the foreseeable future. But do you think a slim version of the PS5 is coming out eventually? Should I burst her bubble and temper her expectations as Thomas in Contact Caesar? Not as memorable, the PS4 Slim, as the previous.
It's not. It definitely looks different. But I don't feel like it's as dramatically smaller as any of the past Slims.
It's hard not to imagine a smaller PS5 coming at some point.
Yeah.
Like, if there's any revision, I can't imagine it getting bigger. Yeah.
I wonder if it'll be a smaller, if we do, and if it's like the exact same weird shape, it's just a smaller version of that, or if they are like, all right, we got that out of our system. Let's just
They're
actually
gonna
make
throw
a
you for a
normal
loop.
looking
It's gonna-
boxy PlayStation 5.
It's going to look like an OG PS1.
Whoa. I would buy it. Alexander Zirianov, what's the point of running commercials for Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5 if both consoles are sold out? Why spend money on marketing for a product that customers can't buy?
Mind
Ooh.
share.
Yes, exactly.
Of course.
Yeah. You want to keep that thing on people's brains even if they don't have access to it.
Obviously, just in general as a rule, how does that change in 2020, though? Like, is that more important this year, or is that... are budgets tighter? Are people, you think, kind of more set in kind of what they want to do? Or do you think there really are people right now that are like, is there a new Xbox? That just don't know. Has it been that kind of year?
I mean, video games are an aggressively iterative business. Like, just the video games are just so inherently wrapped up into technology that I think there is tremendous benefit of having some angle of beating out your competition. So I think from Microsoft and Sony's perspective, you want to be advertising that, hey, we're doing this big, new, exciting thing. You don't want to seem like a lame duck. You want to be like, hey, we keep moving forward. Here's our latest thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they're sold out for as long as possible, that just looks good to them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sadly.
That's part of the ad campaign.
Yep. I heard somebody bought a PlayStation 5 today. Let's get on top of that. Tim Beshin, love and respect. Hey there, in Germany, or especially in Europe, the PS5 won't launch for another week. Pour one out for our European fans. No, we have the situation. Now we have the situation where you can buy Spider-Man Miles Morales for the PS5 without having the console. Furthermore, is the PS4 version a full price? Oh, sorry. Furthermore, the PS4 version is a full price game here, which is €60. This is a lot more money than $40. Any thoughts? Or can you help ease my frustration? Love and respect to y'all, Tim. Really nothing more to talk about here other than just that's unfortunate. How can Tim get through it emotionally?
Just remember that portions of Europe got Endgame like 2 weeks before America did.
Oh.
Something like that, I think. Or some big movie they got
Just
way early
desserts, you
before.
say?
I feel like during the PS2 era, sometimes like highly anticipated games would come out later in Europe, but when they did, they would have like an extra thing. So it'd be like, Kingdom Hearts Final Mix or
Right.
like European Extreme Difficulty or whatever. That they need that for the console that's coming out a week later. Like you get one little cool thing that other people don't get because you had to wait a little bit longer.
This
Yeah.
kind of stuff is weird to me that it still happens though. Like the machine itself is not region locked. Like these things have been sitting in a warehouse for at least a week probably. Like why are they getting it later? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's lived there, so he's lived through all of this, but a week difference is still a huge improvement from where things were, even a decade ago, and definitely 2 decades ago. There used to just be months of gaps between markets, and Europe would always get that, be the last one on the list. So we still see it on a few things, we still don't have any ETA on Persona 5 Scramble, right? Yakuza has been...
we don't.
Yakuza has been, quite a delay between Japan and the West, but for the most part, Europe and the US have been pretty synced up and pretty close. So it's definitely a big change from the past.
I have to issue a correction on myself before the corrections eat me
Excellent.
up. Kingdom Hearts Final Mix did not come out in Europe until 1.5. It was Japan exclusive. European Extreme is a valid example of what I'm talking about, I think.
And I will say to Tim, there are a lot of games that have the save files that'll carry straight over there, make a little list of ones on their list that interest you. And you can technically play those next-gen games, pick them up right where you left off on these new consoles. Because that's all the rage I'm hearing. Not playing the current-gen games, playing those PS4, Xbox One, old-gen games. That's what you really want to do.
Because there's only one... Is Demon's Souls the only game that's only on next gen?
It's on PS3 as well.
A fair point.
That is the correct answer.
Bright Memory or
so
whatever
good.
might be.
And this is adorable from Samuel Smith. Hi, allies. I have a question. If each of you were a game console, which console would each of you be? From any generation, what console personifies Bloodworth? Love and respect, Samwise Game Geek.
Game Geek. Wow.
Do we pick what Bloodworth is, or does Bloodworth pick what
Bloodworth
is?
picks, but just to give you a
Sure.
sense of what you're picking, what console are you?
Oh, gosh. Console am I?
Yeah.
Super crazy.
I'll kick it off. I'm a Nintendo 64 for sure. A little behind the curve at the time, not really like blowing everybody up from a technical perspective, but artistically memorable. That's my hope. That's what I'm shooting for. Don't ask me to fix anything, but got some surprises.
I'm a
in
Switch.
There. You are
I'm
a
a
Switch.
Switch.
Versatile.
Yeah. I'm a verse Switch.
Ian Docked is my favorite, but Ian Portable's fine too.
It's weird because a question like that, it's hard for my brain to just not identify with the GameCube because I work for Planet
You're
GameCube forever.
definitely a GameCube.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
GameCube is appropriate.
You're a GameCube. I didn't know what you were until you said GameCube.
It's got
and I
high
was like,
profile,
oh, right.
big blockbuster, but it's also got those deep cuts people forget about. That you're like, oh, that's right, yeah.
I play the
That was really
bongos.
good. I did. Ben, do you have a console picked out?
I do. I am the Sega Dreamcast.
Nice.
I'm doomed, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and often overlooked and underestimated.
Yeah.
But I think those that do spend the time to really dig in there will find a lot to appreciate, and they'll get a lot of loyalty.
I just got a message from the PlayStation app that Demon's Souls is ready to play.
Oh my
on the
goodness.
PS5.
Oh, that's what
Hard
was
cut on
going
the
on.
podcast.
Ian, we're
I'll see you guys later.
we've lost Ian for the second time. All we got to do is bets. and then we're out of here.
Yeah, I'm going into a tunnel.
Yeah.
My internet is going out.
Time for bets. Very quickly, Ian. Next week's bet. The Xbox Series X has got a top paid games list. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War launches tomorrow, meaning today, if you're listening to this podcast early access, tomorrow after we record this, we're recording this on November 12th. Where is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War going to be on that list, on Xbox Series X top paid games list? Anime Ian Hank got to go with for sure. Number one?
Dude, I want to see what Anime Ben looks like. How did you do that?
Snap camera.
Transfixed. Ben, what is your bet?
Number one.
Number one. All right.
First is what that says.
Blood. Where's it going to be? Are we all taking?
I'm saying number 3. I realized we did not specify an edition. That's one of the things that we saw. There were 3 editions of Assassin's Creed. I don't know what the Call of Duty editions are, but I don't know. Any Call of Duty count?
Yeah, I guess we were.
I think since
Are we
we haven't
talking standard?
specified,
Since we didn't specify.
Yeah,
I think anything counts. Yeah.
Wow, we could all win this one then, because I said 2. So we could all. Everyone's taking it home.
What if
You
there's a
said
Call of Duty
Z.
version on 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
That's a Z.
That's it. All right. No bet from me this week.
No bet for you.
Last
Unless
week's
it's
bet.
26.
The PlayStation 5 launched this week, today, on November 12th, officially. Some people might not get it till later. Apologies. Right now, the DualSense wireless controller, meaning last week, was number 5 on Amazon's best-selling video games list. That means everything, games, consoles, cards, all of it. Where will it be at launch today? I checked before this podcast, Daniel Bloodworth, and it moved. It moved down. Daniel Bloodworth bet 8. Michael Huber bet 7. Ian Hink bet 8 as well. I bet 4. I was real excited because it was number 2 right before we started this podcast, but it slipped to number 4. Hey!
Nice.
You can double check it right now. That is, again, you go to Amazon.com, click bestsellers, and then click video games. The PlayStation 5 console is number 1. PlayStation Store digital card, PlayStation 5 digital edition is number 3, and the wireless controller. Sony
It's amazing
dominating
the console's
currently.
number 1 when it's hard to get, but okay.
Yeah, a lot of people clicking that link. All right, so I get to wrap up this podcast, but first, let me tell you about patreon.com/easyallies.
What are our scores?
Sorry, that brings our scores to Jovial Penguin 16.
They wouldn't put me on a pedestal, so I'm laying them on a slab.
Astonished Scorpions 14. You feel
What
that
number are
momentum?
we
You see
at?
that number going up there? 16 to 14. 16 to 14.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're potentially going into December, still doing bets, baby. It's close.
Woo!
Whew. Can't do all the winning here, though, Blood. Gotta get back on the board. Patreon.com/EasyAllies is where you want to go if you want to support the Easy Allies and learn more about the Easy Allies. But we also have a lot of exclusive stuff. Ian Hink, you are making exclusive shows like a crazy
Left
person.
and right.
There's a lot of stuff that Ian Hink is producing. Ian produces really good stuff that you can get early. You can only get exclusively at Easy Allies. All of those lists are available. All that information is there if you want to check out what those series are. But kudos to you for producing all of that stuff. Patreon.com.
I'm not even sure which one he's talking about.
Yeah, it's a big list. It's a big list. Well, I just want to keep the mystery there and keep the Patreon
Yeah.
segment short so I can move on to the shout-outs, which is our $250 tier and above, of course. There's no limit to your support, potentially, of Easy Allies, but our shout-out tier, 4 people in that slot this month at Easy Allies. We're going to shout them out. Ben, this is a crazy order. Ben, you're actually going first. Okay? I'm going after you, Ben. Bloodworth, you are going after me. Ian, you are going last this time. So Ben, then me, then Blood, then Ian. Shout out to Caleb Togi Crawford, L. Fanis, Greg the Dark Knight Kettering, and Nick.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Shout out.
Nice. I'm going to wrap up
I've
this
never
pod-
been last.
Well, you won't be last next week unless you bit. You,
I've never been last.
you got to bail on the podcast. That's how you make it happen. You shake up the order.
Yeah.
People just I'm thankfully in the same spot that I started, but everyone else is different. I'm going to wrap up this podcast. I get to promote any Easy Allies video I'd like to promote. I get the final word on anything I've disagreed with, want to reiterate, or just popped into my head, and I get to sign off with my trademark sign off. I'm doubling down on Ben Moore right over here. The video I'd like to recommend to you is Ben's review of Yakuza Like a Dragon.
Nice.
Because you got the Xbox Series X launching this week. That game is exclusive for at least a couple months. So PlayStation people aren't getting that until later. So some people might not have access to that game and might be curious about it. Ben did a great review, and Ben is certainly working hard to get that out. That must have been a scary game to jump into because you weren't sure how long that game was going to be. Switching with those RPG mechanics. How long are these battles going to take to get through?
It was. There were definitely moments where just like feeling the pressure of getting the review out, and you're like, this chapter just keeps going.
Yep.
Like, why is it still going? Which it wasn't necessarily that like I wasn't having a good time. It was just, again, feeling that time pressure.
And for my final word, I want to shout out to The Gen That Was, which is a series that we got going on that you might potentially forget about because it comes out every 2 weeks. But I got Ben Moore here is producing that, Ian Hink, who's editing that and putting all of that stuff together. And kudos to you two, who just recorded that today and then immediately went back into this podcast so we could talk about next gen stuff.
Blood also.
And Blood, this is, you have had a very long day, which ends right now at the end of this podcast. Demon Souls. Cheers.
Hey, look, we're launching this new console. Nobody cares about consoles.
If you got 'em, smoke 'em, I guess. And there goes my internet.